My friend Ann Stell ran a women's Bible study group at church, and it was started off pretty good. But as time went on, they had a disruptive uh, member of the group who um, often disrupted and stopped conversation and misdirected things, probably unintentionally, but it was somewhat intrusive. And told me that people in the group started dropping off. And I said, well, Anna, what happened? She said, well, eventually it was just me and the disruptive person. Welcome to Conservative Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith, and I guess we have our disruptive moments, and people are sometimes offended and challenged, and buttons are pushed. And I guess that is inexcusable. And we've been around and around this topic before. The elephant in the room, of course, is always Larry's behavior, which is often demeaning and degrading, and probably, truth be known, misogynistic in many instances. So it's a quandary. This summer I did close down Conservative Coffee Hour for a couple of weeks, and actually Larry decided to take a timeout himself. In all of our conversations at Conservative Coffee Hour, um, I'm always struck by the idea that people mention that they get the most out of the call when they're able to hear people with other viewpoints and opinions, and many of which they don't agree with. I I suspect that's probably not the case for Larry. I think there's plenty of people he does not agree with, but I don't really know if he's always hearing what they're offering and taking away what the learning is in those moments, and that's unfortunate. Um, I've always been drawn to the most difficult and challenging people in my work life, in my personal life, because I mean, I just love a challenge, and I often find that insight and learning comes from some of these challenging situations. I'm never going to agree with them, but you really don't know what they're thinking unless you listen to them. My father often said, you need to know your enemy, and part of that is getting right in there with them and being with them. I'm not playing anybody. I'm not pretending to be anyone's friend. I genuinely liked all these people who I disagree with. I live in downtown Chicago, and most of my friends are at the other end of the spectrum, and it's insightful and it's a wonderful learning opportunity. So perhaps this Saturday we can take a look at asking Larry some of these questions. Part of this is we probably do need to push back. That's the experience we've all had. We've all been law abiding, following the rules, and trying to be nice people. And that probably gets in the way of a lot of what's going on. So I will try to do a better job. If I can't be on the call, we will probably just suspend the call for those times so I can be there and personally witness what's going on. Last week, we had Sue Liu from the Falun Gong, and she was a very interesting speaker about the persecution of the Falun Gong in China and how authoritarian governments uh, seek out and persecute people, anyone they consider to be a threat to the narrative. And Sue actually was disrespected by Larry a couple different times, even though Sue was too sweet and too savvy to take notice of it. Sue mentioned that government, and I think we do talk about the they, but we need to identify who the government and the they are, and if it's those in holding office, those in control, those in uh, elected office, who are the they, and what are these they up to? Are they evil incarnate? I mean, I guess that's a way to look at it, but it's probably more of a management situation. In China, they're trying to manage a lot of people, and they're trying to do it efficiently, um, and with as much equity, I guess I hate that word, for as many people. It's probably a difficult challenge, and from their perspective, they probably see people as a potential unruly mob. And that's something that is unfortunate in this topic at Conservative Coffee Hour, where occasionally it seems like we can't even get along with the people who are in our same circle at the spectrum on the conservative end. If we can't even get along and have a rational, reasonable, sane conversation, it doesn't bode well. It really feeds into the idea that we are an unruly mob and that the government needs to step in and control and manage a dangerous and explosive situation. Last week at Washington National Cathedral, John Meacham preached about how if everyone was a safe driver, we wouldn't need the rules of the road. And John Meacham said that life is both thrilling and terrifying. I'm not into a lot of rules, and I think that most of us would say that yeah, we want to be living our lives unfettered and unrestricted by onerous laws and taxes and restrictions, things that are trying to coerce us into actions and behaviors that really just for the sheer fact that we're being coerced. No one wants to be coerced into doing anything. We want to be doing things of our own fruition. Um, this last summer, we had Bobby Pitton on the call, and I know he's a lightning rod, and I was interested to hear from Bobby Pitton because I perceive him as bringing energy to the conversation. And we did have him on the call, and Larry, for the most part, did listen to Mr. Bobby Pitton. But I was intrigued early on in the interview that Larry did push a couple buttons with Mr. Pitton, which misdirected him. Bobby was there to talk about election integrity, and Larry set him off on a track that ate up a lot of time and energy on his part, and it was something he didn't really want to talk about. And I thought, well, that was a very clever way to shut Bobby down on Larry's side. That he really didn't want to have Bobby talk about election integrity. He wanted him to talk about anything else, and that's what he did. It was really telling. So I don't know what is up with Larry. I'm not Larry's personal friend, and I think we should ask Larry some of these questions. What is that accomplishing in the topic of election integrity, election fraud, as I heard it for these past number of months? Is the idea the reason we didn't want to talk about that is because we didn't want to discourage people from voting. So I get that, but if you're beating up people and clobbering people, what's the goal or point of that? Is that just to show us and rattle our cages and turn us into the unruly mob so that the government has to step in and close us down? I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of narrative. This Saturday, we will be welcoming a couple candidates, one from Arizona, and we'll have some of these conversations this week. If you have a concern or an issue with what's going on in the call, I certainly want to hear about it, and you should voice it on the call. That is our goal, is to have a sane, rational, reasonable conversation, and everyone should be expected to abide by some level of civility, kindness, and love. The Conservative Coffee Hour call is every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time. I will include my email in the description of this video, and I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.